My husband screamed at me. At our daughter's graduation, what was inside that envelope left everyone speechless. The clinking of glasses, the soft murmur of laughter, and the delicate scent of French cuisine lingered in the air. All of it shattered in a single moment. I heard his cold voice rise, clear and unshaken, right in the middle of the celebration. I've decided to start a new life without Olivia. The words came from Ethan, my husband, standing in the center of the room with more than 50 guests watching. His hand holding the champagne glass was trembling slightly. The lavish private room, adorned with white roses to celebrate our daughter Emily's graduation, suddenly fell into a heavy silence. I heard someone gasp behind me. I sat still, blinked once, and felt as though the entire room had frozen around me. All eyes turned toward me, waiting for a spectacle. Tears, screams, maybe even a dramatic slap. But I just smiled. A calm, composed smile, one that made Ethan instinctively take half a step back. I placed my napkin gently on the table and stood up. I reached into my handbag, pulled out a cream-colored envelope, and set it down in front of him with a steady hand, as if I were handing him the bill for the evening. "This is for you," I said, loud and clear enough for everyone to hear. Emily, still wearing the pale blue dress we had picked out together just last week, looked up at me with eyes filled with tears and confusion. I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "I'm proud of you. Today is your day. Don't let anyone steal it from you." I stood tall and looked around the room. Familiar faces, people who had once shared holiday dinners at our home now turned away, avoiding my gaze. They knew, every one of them knew, about Claire, about the betrayal Ethan had tried so hard to hide. I took a deep breath, smiled graciously, and said, "Please, enjoy the rest of the party. Have a lovely afternoon." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away. The sound of my heels echoed sharply on the marble floor, each step striking like the toll of a final bell. Seconds later, I heard the door burst open behind me and Ethan's voice, no longer composed but frantic. "Olivia, what are you doing? Are you insane?" I didn't turn back. The hot Georgia air wrapped around me as I stepped outside. It was thick and stifling, but to me, it felt like cleansing. It reminded me that I was still alive, still standing. I heard Ethan's footsteps pounding the ground behind me. His voice grew louder, more desperate, calling my name again and again. But I kept walking, because the moment he chose to humiliate me in front of everyone was the same moment he unknowingly destroyed himself. Tucked inside my purse, pressed close to my body, was a second envelope. An envelope that held everything he feared the most. Evidence. Truth. And the end of the web of lies he had spent years weaving. I tightened my grip around the bag and felt an unfamiliar calm settle over me. This was not the end of my story. It was only the beginning. The beginning of a journey where I would reclaim everything that was rightfully mine. And it all began on this scorching afternoon with a single envelope that left everyone speechless. The look in Ethan's eyes during that party wasn't unfamiliar to me. I had seen it before. It was on a cold January night. I was sitting at the dining table, sorting through our family's expense reports, when I came across some transactions that didn't make sense. There was a receipt from a luxury jewelry store in Atlanta. Lavish dinners at restaurants I had never stepped foot in. Flight tickets to cities Ethan had never once mentioned to me. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry or accuse him of anything. I simply watched. And then I started writing everything down. Every date, every amount, every location. 3 days later, in a moment of sheer coincidence, I noticed his iPad was left open on the kitchen counter. The screen was still glowing, and there it was. The string of messages. They weren't meant for me. Claire had written, "I wish we could be together forever, far away from her." And Ethan had replied, "I promise. This summer will be the beginning of our new life." I closed the iPad slowly. My hands trembled slightly. But inside me, something had begun to take form. a new clarity, a calm resolve. I was no longer the naive woman who once believed in promises made 2 decades ago. I knew I would not stay and be humiliated a second time. The very next morning, I scheduled a meeting with Charlotte, a well-known divorce attorney in the city. We met in her sunlit office. I placed a folder on the desk in front of her, filled with everything she needed: bank statements, receipts, and screenshots of their messages. Charlotte looked through the documents once and gave a slow, deliberate nod. "We've got a perfect play." I turned to the window, watching the early light stream across the buildings. My heart felt calm, like I had just sat down for the first move in a long, calculated game. I would strike when Ethan felt most untouchable, and I had already chosen the moment for that first move, the moment that would change the course of everything. It would be on the day our daughter graduated. In the weeks that followed, I turned myself into a shadow in the house that once held so many precious memories. Ethan still came home wearing that same fake smile. He still sat at the dinner table with Emily, pretending as if nothing had changed. Meanwhile, every night I retreated to the small study room, quietly documenting every piece of evidence, backing up every suspicious transaction and every message. I hired Jason, a private investigator who had once been a friend of my brother, to follow Ethan. The first batch of photos arrived quicker than I had anticipated. Ethan and Claire, holding hands at Hilton Head Beach, smiling over candlelit dinners at expensive restaurants. Jason captured everything in detail: every date, every time, every place. He told me calmly, "Keep gathering more. Wait until after the graduation. He'll reveal himself without you needing to say a word." So I kept waiting. I continued to play the role of the perfect wife. I accompanied Ethan to shop for graduation decorations. I helped Emily choose her dress. I sat beside them, smiling, helping to select the menu for the celebration. Every moment was a battle. I had to summon every ounce of strength not to tear off the mask of lies Ethan wore so effortlessly. On the night before the party, while Ethan still lived in the illusion of victory, I quietly arranged all the documents and sealed them carefully into a cream-colored envelope. Inside that envelope were the signed divorce papers, the irrefutable evidence of his affair, and a detailed list of assets, all meticulously prepared to be divided exactly according to the prenuptial agreement Ethan had once carelessly signed. The next morning, as I walked arm in arm with Ethan into the banquet room, wearing the serene smile of a woman completely in love, I knew it was time for my plan to unfold. I needed only to wait, to let Ethan destroy himself. And he did. He did it all on his own, right in front of all our friends and family. The clinking of glasses, the gentle hum of laughter, and the delicate scent of French cuisine filled the air. All of it shattered in a single moment. I heard his cold voice rise, slicing through the celebration. "I have decided to start a new life without Olivia." It was Ethan, my husband, standing in the center of the room filled with more than 50 guests, his hand trembling slightly around a champagne glass. The atmosphere froze immediately after Ethan's announcement. The murmuring stopped. The soft clatter of silverware against plates fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward me, waiting for some reaction, a dramatic scene. I stood up slowly. My dress brushed lightly against the chair, and the sound of my heels striking the marble floor echoed crisply through the dense air. Ethan stood only a few steps away. The man who once commanded every room he entered now looked small, gripping his glass so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Emily, my sweet girl, sat frozen in her seat. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling. The pale blue dress she had so excitedly chosen for this special day now looked heartbreakingly fragile. I bent down and pressed a kiss against her forehead. I whispered, "I'm here. No matter what happens, I am always here." Straightening up, I faced Ethan. At the corner of my lips, a calm, steady smile appeared. From my handbag, I pulled out a cream-colored envelope and placed it neatly on the table in front of him. "Ethan," I said, my voice gentle yet ringing clearly across the breathless room. You forgot to read the small gift I prepared for you." Ethan hesitated, his eyes flickering toward the envelope as if it were something dangerous. But the weight of all the eyes watching forced him to reach out and take it. Slowly, he tore it open. Sheets of paper slipped out and scattered across the table. Just a glance at the first few lines, and I saw the color drain from his face. His lips parted, trembling as if to speak, but no sound came out. Inside the envelope was everything. The signed divorce papers, a copy of the prenuptial agreement outlining terms severely unfavorable to a cheating spouse, photographs, screenshots of the messages between Ethan and Claire. Each piece of evidence landed like a dagger against the image Ethan had spent years building. The air inside the room grew even heavier. I heard the murmurs beginning again, quick glances exchanged, people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Ethan gripped the documents tightly, his eyes bloodshot. He turned to me, his voice rough and barely audible. "Olivia, you don't have to do this. We can talk." I shook my head slightly, the same calm smile lingering on my lips. "You already made your choice, Ethan. And today, you face the consequences of it." Behind me, Emily began to sob. Her cries broke through the heavy silence, and a few guests awkwardly stood up, looking for an excuse to leave. One by one, the very people who had once toasted to Ethan's success now quietly averted their eyes. In less than 5 minutes, Ethan Monroe, the man who believed he was untouchable, had crumbled publicly before family, friends, and colleagues. And I, Olivia Monroe, was the one holding all the cards. I walked away from the table. Not hurriedly, but with firm, deliberate steps, leaving Ethan standing alone in a sea of judgmental stares and irreversible humiliation. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Stepping out of the hotel, I took a deep breath, feeling the scorching summer sun sear against my skin. In that moment, I was no longer the woman who had been betrayed. I was a woman who had reclaimed her life. Behind me, the glass doors swung open. Ethan rushed after me, calling my name, his voice hoarse and desperate. I stopped and turned to face him one last time. Ethan was panting, his hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, looking more defeated than I had ever seen him. "Olivia, you can't do this. You'll destroy everything." I looked straight into his eyes, my gaze steady and unwavering. "No, Ethan, you destroyed everything. I'm just making sure you face the consequences." He took a step forward, reaching out as if to grasp at something slipping away. I stepped back, lifting my chin high. "From this moment on, everything you lose, every ounce of pain you feel, will be the price you have to pay." Ethan stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching as I turned and walked away, each step carrying me further from the man who had once been my entire world. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was the last time I would ever let my heart ache for him. He remained there on the curb, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, his face drained of all color, filled only with panic and helplessness. But I never looked back. I walked straight to the car waiting nearby, where my mother and Emily sat waiting. As soon as I opened the door, Emily threw herself into my arms, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, don't leave me." I held her tightly, running my hand up and down her back just as I had when she was a little girl, trying to pass on the strength I was desperately clinging to myself. "No one is leaving anyone, sweetheart. You and I will get through this together." The car pulled away from the hotel. Through the window, I saw Ethan collapse onto the steps, his head buried in his hands. His figure grew smaller and smaller until he was swallowed by the crowd and the blinding summer light. I turned away, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the weeks that followed, Ethan tried everything to contact me. Texts, calls, emails. Sometimes he pleaded. Sometimes he raged and threatened. I never answered a single message. Every communication was routed through my lawyer, Charlotte. She handled everything with cold, precise efficiency, leaving Ethan no chance to manipulate, plead, or bargain. The first court date came faster than I expected. Ethan showed up in a crumpled suit, his face gaunt, a ghost of the successful man he once projected to the world. When the judge read the summary of the case, his brow furrowed as he glanced through the undeniable evidence of Ethan's infidelity. Ethan lowered his head. He said nothing. The entire hearing took less than an hour. The court granted my divorce petition unilaterally. The division of assets was executed strictly according to the prenuptial agreement, awarding the majority to me and Emily. Ethan lost the house. He lost most of his wealth. He lost the respect of his colleagues and friends. When I stepped out of the courthouse that day, I lifted my face to the sun and smiled. Emily stood beside me, clutching my hand tightly. She had grown so much through all of it. "Mom," Emily whispered, "I'm so proud of you." I squeezed her hand gently, too overwhelmed to speak. Behind us, Ethan stood alone, staring blankly as we walked away. There was no one left by his side. No family, no friends, not even his mistress. Claire had left as soon as the scandal exploded. She could not bear to stay with a broken, penniless man. Everything Ethan had betrayed me for had crumbled into ashes. And I, the woman he had once dismissed and underestimated, was the one still standing tall. Claire disappeared from the city just a few days after the intimate photos of her and Ethan flooded social media. With nothing left to hold on to, she abandoned him in utter humiliation and loneliness. The media picked up the scandal quickly. Headlines screamed across every news outlet. Businessman Ethan Monroe, caught in affair, loses everything. Explosive divorce shakes the financial world. The same people who once shook Ethan's hand and toasted to his success now turned their backs on him. Business deals were canceled. The reputation he had spent 2 decades building crumbled into dust within a few short weeks. I watched it all unfold from a distance, feeling no hatred, no bitterness. I had walked through the fire. Now, there was only peace. I focused on building a new life for myself and Emily. We moved into a small house on the outskirts of town, with a garden blooming in the front yard and sunlight spilling through every window. I started a small consulting company, helping other women who were going through broken marriages to find their confidence and independence again. Life was busy, but every morning I woke up grateful that I had found the courage to step out of the darkness. One afternoon, as I watered the lavender pots on the front porch, Emily came running toward me, a letter in her hand. "Mom, there's a letter for you." I wiped my hands on my apron and took it. The handwriting on the envelope was messy, but I recognized it immediately. It was from Ethan. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it. Inside was a short note. "I'm sorry. I've lost the most important things in my life. I don't expect forgiveness. I only hope you and Emily find happiness. Ethan." I folded the note and placed it quietly on the table. No tears, no pain, only a gentle final closure. I turned to Emily and smiled. "Come on, sweetheart. We have a date with some ice cream." Emily grabbed my hand, her eyes sparkling with happiness. And I knew, deep in my heart, that I had won. Not by revenge or bitterness, but by saving myself and choosing a life of peace. That was the sweetest victory of all. The summer drifted by quietly. Emily started a new school year with a renewed sense of confidence. She joined the art club, made new friends, and slowly brought her full smile back. As for me, I made time every day for the small things that mattered. Mornings spent brewing a cup of coffee, opening the windows to let the sunlight flood in, listening to the birds sing. Those small routines became the foundation of my strength. The little company I started began to grow. Women came to me with tired, hollow eyes, but left with smiles and a new light in their hearts. I realized that through my own painful journey, I could help others find their way too. One day, while hosting a small workshop titled Rebuilding Life After Loss, I received a call from a local TV station. They wanted me to share my story. I hesitated at first, but then I remembered those nights I sat alone, wishing someone would tell me that everything would be okay. And so I said yes. On the day of the taping, I wore a simple white dress, with only the lightest touch of makeup. When the camera started rolling, I told my story. Not with bitterness, not with sadness, but with truth and resilience. When the program aired, I received hundreds of messages from women all over the country. They shared their own stories. They thanked me for giving them hope that they too could overcome. A week later, I received a handwritten letter. It was from a middle-aged woman whose handwriting shook across the page. Because of you, I found the courage to leave a toxic marriage that lasted 30 years. Thank you for lighting the path for me. I read the letter with tears slipping down my face. Not from sorrow, but from a deep, overwhelming sense of purpose. Autumn arrived, and I hosted a small gathering at my home, surrounded by the few true friends who had stood by me. Emily helped set the table with flowers and homemade desserts. The house was filled with laughter, candlelight, and warmth. Standing in my small kitchen, looking at the familiar, loving faces around me, I knew I had truly left the past behind. No more bitterness, no more regret, only gratitude. For the woman I had become, for the life I had rebuilt. At the end of the night, Emily ran into the backyard, releasing sky lanterns into the cool evening air. I wrote a small wish on a piece of paper and tucked it inside one of the lanterns. May everyone who has ever been hurt find their own light. I watched as the lantern floated up into the dark sky, carrying with it all the old pain, all the old scars. And I knew my life was truly just beginning. My story is not just about surviving pain. It is living proof that every one of us deserves love, respect, and a life that feels whole. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this journey. If you found even a little hope, encouragement, or connection through this story, please remember to subscribe to her side of the story. We will continue to be here, sharing the stories of courageous, strong women so that every day feels a little brighter on your own journey. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I will see you again in the next story on Her Side of the Story.